Good evening, everyone. This video is going to be a trading review and support session for June the 28th, 2023. And it was a relatively strange day. So let's go through the strangeness. And I want to bring up the news. Not that there's a whole lot of news, but there was a kind of an event today which played a role in what was going on today. So today is I need to get to Wednesday. All right, so here's what we were looking at. Wednesday the 28th. We had some trade goods and preliminary wholesale news, inventory news. No big deal. And then, but at 6:30, right when the market was opening, a panel discussion started, which has had what Fed Chair Powell was a member of the panel, and on the panel was Powell and the European central bankers as well, and as of course, it was about monetary policy, and didn't know exactly what to expect, other than it appeared to me like it was going to be a weird day, and it was. I even considered maybe not trading, but what fun would that be? So here is what accentuated the weirdness, and this is today, and I'll just draw a horizontal line or vertical line, sorry, at about the time the market was opening, which was okay, so it's about there. So let me draw this line. So it was starting to come down. So there's roughly where it's opening. So as you can see, that between the highs and the lows, it was a pretty low range overnight session. Volume was okay. I think going into the open, it was still about 180-ish something thousand contracts, so it wasn't extremely low. It's just that there wasn't direction at all. So I mean, the day before, it ended up having a pretty good end of the day, and so it ended up with an up close, which is actually the same as true today. So here's yesterday's close. Today's close relative to yesterday's. Well, no, here's yesterday's close relative to yesterday's close. So it ended up being an up day, but it just didn't have any range. So I was kind of it's strange and unusual. So I was kind of on guard for that. But then a couple of things happened. Nothing was too bad in the beginning, right? So it looked like it was coming down and continuing to coming down. So here was my first entry here, right, after he had come down to the pivot point, and that trade worked fine. Now then the problem was, I noticed that I had to reconstruct my trading chart yesterday. So I was discussing that. I had a strange problem with prices weren't matching with my dome. So I took the trade. So I traded correctly. I mean, the prices on the dome were correct, but the prices on my chart were not. So to get rid of that, I completely started over my trading chart, and in so doing, and I wanted to do it from scratch. So I deleted the old desktop. I didn't want to use the TML file, which I needed to make a couple of changes for my charts anyway, since I've got more than one E-mini chart. I mean, I've got a couple of things I have to do to make that compatible. And so in so doing, I forgot two things. One, I didn't have the volume on the bottom, the AVR volume on the bottom, which is a little bit strange. And two, I wasn't getting the expansions on my trading chart. So I had to stop a couple of different times to make those chart fixes. And as a result, I was pretty late on a couple of trades. And here's the first one. In reality, I shouldn't have taken it because this is much too aggressive. I mean, somewhere in here would have been okay, but here it was not. So here I took one, I added to it here. I did get out of one, right? I did get out of one unit there, but it's never really came back around. So after an initial first trade, that was just fine. And the other thing, I was going for 3 ticks today because we didn't really know how much it was going to travel. It turned out that it would have been okay. But anyway, so later on I switched to 4. So I added now a second unit here, right? It's coming back to the EMA. I think it's going to go, but it did not. Maybe I could have reversed a little bit sooner, but I reversed up in here around the minute average, added to it again. So I reversed with 2, added another one right as it was breaking around. So I got a good entry there, and I was out of those units between the 3-minute and the VWAP. So while I had an initial profit, I kind of gave some of that away, right? But then I came back and was doing okay again. So it hit VWAP and the 5-minute moving average coming down. Took a trade here, out. Took a trade here and out. Everything's okay. And then again, I was watching these news releases, and here's kind of that same scenario, right? Much too aggressive here on the entry, right? Again, coming into EMA band 2 and the new low, so it didn't quite get out there. Waited for it, right? Came back up into this resistive kind of an area, added to it again, and I'm out here. So I survived that, right? But the story of the day is going to be I was collecting lots of commissions along the way. So I'm not in bad shape. I just have commissions to pay for, and that story continued. So I'm out of those units here, and we're going into the 7 o'clock time frame. No 7 o'clock news. This one didn't look too bad. I mean, I don't feel too bad about this trade. Totally did not work. So I was with the trend. I was under the EMA, under the minute average. I was with the flexes. The only thing wrong with this thing is it was going into the 3-minute close, and when it's coming over that sort of thing, right? So I mean, I did need it to go beyond the 3-minute close, nowhere near the all session low to get me out, and it didn't have any expansions up during this time frame. So I don't feel too bad about that entry. It just didn't work. So it came back up. Then I made an aggressive entry because now it's going up. I could have potentially reversed here, right? I was watching it, but I got a fairly good down candle. Now I'm not with the trend anymore. I'm above the flexes, so that's a questionable add, right? But I'm trying to get out of the trade. So I ended up reversing here, right? And so I had to actually I added to it as it was breaking through the 3-minute moving average here, and I got out. But the result of this is I donated profit back. I was never in really bad shape in terms of profitability, just back and forth all day long, collecting commissions along the way. Now here's another trade that I regret, right? So again, so I was listening to some of those comments, but I have to remember, when they're releasing these things on Financial Juice, especially, right, because they were in Europe, right? It's going to take time to digest those sorts of things. They probably weren't listening to it live, so the releases coming through were delayed. They're always delayed in Financial Juice because I'm not. I'm just a normal member. I'm not a pro member, which costs a lot of money. But this is regardless, this is a regrettable entry. even though, right, it was coming off, this is what I was looking at, even though it was coming off the EMA with volume and even had a follow on, right, it still just wasn't aligned with the Ultraflex, right? So it had moved up, right, coming into the 7 o'clock hour, and it looked like a good bounce, or could have been a good bounce, but it didn't. So it's coming through. I didn't add to it, but then it got a little bit weird. All right, let me move this over. So it kind of broke down, reversed somewhere around here, added to it, and then somehow I got trigger happy, added to it again, right? And so at this point, I think I must have had four. I'm guessing 3 or 4, but yeah, because I was out 3 here, right? So I had them bunched up relatively close to be able to get out. They probably got out of 3. It only had 2 levels, and then added to it here, right? Because again, coming kind of again, I'm kind of with the trend here. I'm a little bit early because slow flex hadn't changed, but that's okay. And then I added to it one more time, and then I'm out over here. So again, I'm edging into profitability land, but with every trade, and the day has me a little bit sketchy. So I'm not going for big profits on any one trade. I'm trying to get out of trades with some profit, but again, commissions are starting to add up. So 714, and so again, this one, it's once it has kind of gone over Ultraflex a little bit, it's made a move, kind of gone over Ultraflex. We really need to be on guard some, because this is not going to be the most conservative entry. So once again, I mean, it's not just that I'm adding to it, right? I'm reversing, which essentially doubles the commissions that you're seeing, right? So I had one reversed, added to it here, got out, right? Before it got back up here to VWAP and the 5-minute moving average, because I didn't know if it was going to go up or not. But I got out, probably with something of a loss on this overall position. There's so many trades today that I couldn't keep track of everything. So, but it broke out, took a long trade there. Finally, it worked pretty good. Got another one here, and that worked pretty good. And then I think that's about the last one that I marked. So at this particular point, I was profitable, as I was saying in the room this morning. I was profitable on a gross basis, but and I didn't even really want to look to see how many units I had traded to be able to calculate commissions in my head to see how much more I needed. But I did a little bit later, so I wanted to take a break. I did a little bit later, and on a net basis, I was still negative. So I spent some more time. I'm not going to go through each and every trade, but I was basically clawing my way, just trying to add to profit, add to profit, add to profit. Not in an aggressive manner. I just wanted to be able to pay for commissions, and I did. I did end up paying for all commissions, and made about 2 points net for the day. Not a great day by any stretch. Some of it, well, it's always kind of self-inflicted, right? But I mean that the chart threw me off. The Powell panel discussion in Europe, threw me off, and I think it threw some other people off as well. So it wasn't a great trading day. So that was kind of it. I mean, it was ended up being a profitable day. Like I was saying this morning when I was kind of like going back and forth. I'm certainly making money for AMP more so than me. Well, maybe not, but anyway, definitely made some money for AMP in the exchange, of course. So lessons learned. Weird days. We definitely shouldn't be taking any aggressive trades. And I took too many today. Some because I needed to get back into profitability, and that did not end up helping me. I mean, at some point, the market kind of settled down, and then as I was clawing my way back in to pay for commissions, every trade was profitable. Sometimes I settled for a couple of ticks, but every single trade was profitable, and so I ended up, like I said, on a couple of points positive on a net basis, and AMP should be happy, and they should send me a Christmas card this year. They should always send me a Christmas card, but that was kind of the story. So we should have some news. Let's just fast forward into news tomorrow and Friday, because I think we've got some activity coming up. This is Thursday. Thursday. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have first-time unemployment claims, right? Which is volatile. And at 7, we'll have pending home sales. So some market activity tomorrow to push the market around some, right? So it should be reasonable from that perspective. And then Friday we have something. We have Friday's going to be kind of a volatile one at 5:30, right? We're going to have core PCE, which is what the Feds are kind of looking for on their judgment of how inflation is doing. And everything Powell said, today that I was interpreting on the releases on Financial Juice is nothing necessarily new. He's just saying inflation is stubborn. He did say one thing I didn't think I had heard him quantify before, and that was he didn't really expect to be able to get down the inflation rate to the 2% target until 2025, 2 years from now. Right, so so services is kind of the sector that is difficult to contain right now, and some of that is because our employment is still pretty hot, and so personal consumption, and we're going to get that data. We're going to get that data tomorrow and Friday. We'll get another view of the data to see how aggressive the Fed might end up being. And he did say one other thing today, and he said that don't rule out. They're not ruling out consecutive meeting increases, right? So I think before the sentiment was probably going to be that they're going to raise in July, then maybe skip and then raise again at the next one. That might not be the case, right? That might not be the case. So more data to come. Hopefully next couple of days, or as we end the month of June in our trading, that we have another couple pretty good days to go. So that's really all I had. A lot of commissions today. That's all I can say. Lots of trading. Hopefully I'll try to calm down. It was not a normal day, and I had a couple of complications again with charts, which threw me off. All right, so I got those settled down. My charts tomorrow should have less of an excuse tomorrow to be able to trade more accurately. So we will see you tomorrow morning in the trading room. Have a good evening.